if you're creating content on LinkedIn on a regular basis, once a week, and you're doing it on a consistent basis, you are already in the top 1% of all creators on LinkedIn, because no one creates content. Everybody's kind of in that like lurker mode. They're looking at everybody else's content. Maybe they're liking or commenting, but very few people are creating content, and even less are creating video content.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for a way to distinguish yourself in any field right now, creating video content on LinkedIn is huge. Creating any content on LinkedIn is huge. And since they're pushing this vertical video content, they're prioritizing that. So like there's a huge opportunity in the market right there. Would you agree with that? All right, welcome to the Secret Origins podcast. I'm Nick Skovgaard, and I have with me today a real treat. Lindsey Gamble is one of the coolest guys I have ever met. Lindsey is like one of the experts in the influencer marketing creator economy. He's a consultant. He has like the coolest job ever. I saw a picture not too long ago of you at like the White House press conference. Like this dude's a legend. I am so happy to have you on the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
My man, thank you. I feel like I was just coming out to the basketball court and about to play in the NBA Finals. I love that intro.
Seriously, I mean every word of it. Like I met Lindsey at the MDMC conference in St. Louis. We just got to talking, and he has such a great, he's such a great public speaker. He has this really cool job and skill set that most people never get to see. So Lindsey, let's start with that. Will you just tell us a little bit about what it is you do? What does that mean?
Yeah, I kind of have a unique journey. Today, I'm a influencer marketing consultant and advisor. But my journey's been really unique, kind of fast forwarding through everything. I started a hip hop blog many years ago, learned how to create content, learned how to be a creator, learned how to work with brands, turned that into a job at a small influencer marketing agency. 6 months, got laid off, then came across a company called Maverick, now called Later, which I was at for just under 6 months, where I helped brands work with social media influencers for influencer marketing. Learned a lot there, and then decided to go solo on my own a couple of months ago.
Lindsey, I want to give some context to this because I feel like you're a naturally modest guy. So like everybody knows, that one cousin or whatever that's like, I'm an influencer, or I work with influencer, and they have like, these little tiny accounts, or, it's their, whatever. They've got 10 followers. But Lindsey, you're doing this on another level. Will you talk about some of the brands you work with, some of the influencers you work with, so that people can really grasp like how connected you are to this industry?
Yeah, so I kind of play two different roles. So as the marketer, I've been able to work with some of the biggest enterprise brands out there, run campaigns for PayPal, Tyson Foods, Shark Ninja, Hotel Tonight, probably double dozens of them. And then there's also the aspect of being a content creator myself. So taking my experience and, what I've been able to do from the influencer marketing space and being able to share my thoughts and perspectives around influencer marketing and like the greater creator economy. I've been doing that for, many years now, slowly over time, and kind of building up a name. So, one aspect is having the practical, tactical experience, but also being able to see the bigger picture, be able to see where the industries are going and help people, marketers, creators, and operators.
Beautiful. So let's kind of break this down a little bit of like when you talk about your role as an influencer marketing consultant, what actually happens? Like, what are you doing? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, it's really unique. It's fun, especially being on my own. But I would say it comes down to helping brands with their influencer marketing practice. So brands say, hey, we want to work with creators. We want to run these campaigns to drive some type of business goals. It could be brand awareness. It could be sales. And helping them with that strategy. Brands might be 101, they might be 301, but supporting them in a way that helps them with their goals, in a way that actually drives actions based on what they want to accomplish. And some of that might just be providing the overall strategy. Some of that might be, helping with execution. Some of that might be connecting the dots. And so there's like that one aspect from the brand standpoint. Then another aspect too has been really fun is helping the companies, the platforms, the people that are kind of in the middle between creators and brands, and helping them as well. So figuring out how can they launch new business lines to cater to brands that want to work with creators. how can they have better practices for creators. So it's not just about the marketers themselves, but how can you work with creators where it's also beneficial to them, whether it's a transaction or also helping them grow their audience and helping them, expand their network. So to answer your question, it's a little bit all over the place, but it's fun. And that's the aspect I really like about it.
That's awesome. And so like this is one of those industries that I think is not understood by so many business owners. Like and I mean that from like the mom and pop shops all the way up to some of the largest brands. I want to break this down and kind of love you a softball here, which is like what are the three biggest things that brands are doing around the influencer areas that is just they're just doing it totally wrong. I have to imagine you run into conversations all the time where you just like bury your head in your hands and you're like, what are you doing? That's gotta happen, right?
Of course. I think the first one is starting with the goals. I think most brands today, especially with the economy, want to get some ROI, based on whatever dollars they're putting into influencer marketing. And that's great. And there's nothing wrong with focusing on lower funnel, results like sales and conversions. But when you first start out, especially if you're in a industry where people aren't taking action based on one piece of content, I think that's the biggest mistake. I've worked with brands in the past that have had budgets and expected, 20K budget is going to drive, six-figure revenue. And that's not going to happen all the time. Sometimes it does. And so I would say that's the number one, kind of challenge where the expectation of ROI isn't always aligned with what you can actually do with creators at that time. The second one is compensation. We're past the days of people just wanting product, right? They want to get a certain product or work with, product from a brand. Most people have the money to go out and purchase that. And so I think some brands, especially larger brands, still think that if they're offering a creator, $100 product, that's enough to get them to do all these deliverables. And so, I see it from the scrappy new coming brands that don't have budgets all the way up to, Fortune 500 brands that have, the biggest budgets in the world, but sometimes it's just not cheap, for lack of a better word, not cheap, but just have budgets that are constrained. So that's the second one, not having the right compensation for creators. And you can work with creators on a free basis, gifting basis, but you also have to have expectations around what they're going to do and what type of creator you can get.
And it can go really wrong sometimes too, right?
Of course. I mean, every day I'm on Threads, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. I see creators, sharing screenshots of offers they get from brands. And it's not surprising to me. I've been on the other side too, where I worked with a brand and they just have a limited budget and they throw a prayer up and hope that they can work with a big creator. And it's not always that they're devaluing creators. Sometimes they just don't know. But also, like, there's always creators that will do it for free. I mean, I've worked with brands, for free before, knowing that could be an opportunity to a longer partnership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last one I would say, just when it comes to reporting too, it's like, not only do you have to have the right goals in place, but you also got to make sure that when you're looking at the results of the campaign, that they align back to what you set out as goals. And so a lot of influencer marketers focus around top of the funnel, right? Impressions, earned media, engagements. And so you have to be able to connect the dots of like, here's what we set out to do and here's what the results are. And what does this tell us? Were we successful? But also being able to pull out the insights and details from those results that you can use for future campaigns to make them better and hit your KPIs.
Maybe just backing up a little second here, like why do you think that brands should be paying more attention to influencer marketing? I feel like that's so obvious to you and I who are kind of in this world, but I mean, there are still brands that are just completely overlooking this market. And I think that you kind of solve that problem for them, right? A brand that might be overlooking it because they don't know how to get started. So like, why should they be paying attention? And then how do they reach out to somebody like you to get them off the ground?
Influencer marketing is based on social proof. The idea that what other people say about you is more important than what you say about yourself. We have companies, brands that are talking to us daily about how good their product is, how good their service is. Most times you don't trust them, even if they're correct. You're more likely to listen to a friend or family about a recommendation than the company itself. And that's pretty much the role that influencers play. More times than not, whether it's our news, whether it's product recommendations or sports commentary, we're going to individuals that have built up a trust in, community around whatever interest or passion. What they say, their community typically believes. And so if you're a brand that wants to get in front of certain audiences that want to make purchases, regardless of that industry, creators are the centerpiece and kind of the main vehicle to actually get in front of the audience, but also get get that audience to take action because they trust that creator and they follow that creator. And that's creator's voice is more powerful than a company.
So I love that. There's a marketing quote that I just absolutely love that I feel like is so appropriate right here, which is like, your brand isn't what you say it is. Your brand is what other people say it is when you're not in the room. And I think that that is like the sort of crux of the creator economy. And then to take that even one step further, it's, even when you have, let's say, a celebrity endorsement or a celebrity action, and like in the middle of our podcast, I'm like, oh, this is delicious. Oh, it's so good. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's not quite the same thing. And influencers have been able to bridge that gap really well by putting some of that product placement in and connecting stories to products and things like that, but that don't feel hokey or overacted. They feel natural. And I think that's something that like advertising has been missing for so long. That seems like it makes all the difference in the world. Would you agree with that?
Of course, because it's all about the messaging. And I think when you're inside, when you're on a marketing team and you're thinking about, here's what we want to accomplish, here's our messaging, you're usually thinking about it from such a limited view of like, we have to check the box on everything. When you work with creators, yeah, you want to make sure that you provide them with the right messaging and copy and talking points, but they're going to take that and be able to distribute it in a way that resonates and is understandable by their audience. And it's all about communication, right? So, companies will focus on communication that makes sense to them, but maybe not to the audience, where creators typically are creating content that is going to be well received and resonate with the audience, because that's exactly who they're catering to. And without catering to the audience, they're not creators or they're not influencers. It's all audience based.
No, I love that. And again, finding somebody who can deliver that message better than your brand or better than a celebrity endorsement. And a lot of times at either a comparable or lower budget, which is, can be more effective at less cost potentially. You have had such a cool career, and I've only scratched the surface of getting to learn about it. But you run such an incredibly powerful newsletter on LinkedIn. You're a LinkedIn top voice. You're a public speaker, and you're a phenomenal speaker, by the way. You've kind of gone on this journey in a really unique way where you've seen the content creator side. You've been able to do that. You create content all the time at a really high level. How did you develop all these skills? How did you get to where you are today?
It goes back to my hip hop blogging days. I talk about this a lot on different podcasts and interviews, but it's the foundation of everything I do today. I had a love for writing and music, and I combined that. And I saw the results from, putting my thoughts and perspective, not on paper, but on a website and in social media, and the power that it can have. And so whether it's been music or the creator economy, or even I had a travel blog for a little bit, just practice and repetition of being able to share information or content in a way that is going back to audience based. And after a while, you start to understand, how do you get the message across in the amount of words, the right format. And for me, the format, going back to the newsletter, has been text or writing. That's my strength. I've been doing it for years. That's where I think I do the best in terms of being able to share content. And it's not the best format today, right, with short form video, but it's a format that works best for me to get my thoughts and my perspective across, and to be able to connect with audiences that care about the content that I'm writing about.
Just to give me a frame of mind, like, if you're going back to kind of when that moment happened, how old were you in that, like, when did you start that?
So I graduated 2010 and I started my blog in 2011. So a while back, but not too long ago. I just used to write every day. During my 9 to 5, I would take my lunch breaks and write, about hip hop. I would go to shows, I would write about that. And I basically do the same thing I do today when it comes to the creator economy. And over time, it's just, it's like working out, or it's like playing a sport. You practice, and you start to, it's like muscle memory in a sense, over time of taking, especially when it comes to like creating content, being able to take news from a social media platform or from a brand collaboration, being able to read it, and then more importantly, think about, what does it mean for the industry? What does it mean for creators? What does a new feature going to allow them to do? What does it mean for brands? How can brands incorporate that new feature or tool in their campaigns? And thinking beyond just this is what happened, but this is what happened, this is what it means, and connecting it back to the greater industry so that it's actionable for anyone that reads it or consumes my content.
Kind of thinking about, younger you, and one of my favorite questions is kind of like thinking back to like advice you would give your younger self. But like today, it feels like everyone wants to be a content creator. Every little kid, I've got, four kids, and at least two of them want to be YouTube stars when they grow up. And like, that's where that sort of like Starstruck piece is. I think that one, just as a young person trying to figure out how to develop a career, and then two, as somebody who, even like myself, who is like still new to creating content at a successful level, what do you have some advice that you would share for either one of those two groups of like how they can think about the content they're creating to be more effective and to maybe follow in your footsteps to some degree?
Yeah, and kind of going back to your previous question was like, as you were talking, it made me think back, like even before I started writing, I used to draw and paint. So I've always been creative. And so those are two different ways of using your hands, but it goes back to, producing or creating something around a passion of yours. And so to answer your question, I think, if more people want to be content creators today, young children, but also adults, right? Look at LinkedIn. We're all producing content, right? It's really picking a topic or a subject that that you can talk about or write about or create about anytime. And I think when it's something that you're passionate about, it's a lot easier to do every day. And I think over time, you just have to do, not every day, but consistently create content around that. I think, even going back to like the industry, like, right, there's certain topics that might be more popular from a content standpoint, like anything that's funny, people love to watch, but that might not be the best vertical for you as a person that wants to be a creator. So pick something that you really know, something that you can talk about or produce about consistently, because naturally you're going to be better at that, but also it gives you the opportunity to focus in on something that you can potentially stand out from the rest of the crowd of creators, producers, publishers, whatever we're calling them today.
So I want to pull on the thread for one more audience that is kind of unique, right? You get to work with all these incredible brands, and you get to sit in the rooms where the meetings are happening of like, how do we reach these creators and how do we leverage them? And, what do the budgets look like? What would you say to those creators that are in sort of that middle or upper range that are successful content creators? They are monetized. They are getting some of these opportunities. What would you tell them about the things that are happening in the meetings, making the decision to hire them? What are most of the content creators not doing that the brands are looking for?
I think a lot of them don't understand what brands actually want. And some of that is based on the brands themselves. You might get a creative brief and it might tell you what deliverables you have, what channel, what posting date, what's the messaging, but sometimes they don't tell you what the goal is. Content that's focused on brand awareness is a lot different than content that's focused on driving sales. And what I find is, and this going back to what I said about how there's a lot of creators that share screenshots of what they're being offered. Sometimes they're being offered that amount because the marketer wants to tap into them as content creators and not necessarily their audience. And so when you're paying for audience versus content or both, it's going to be a different price point. And also it's going to be how, a brand decides to allocate their budgets. So I think just understanding what the marketers actually want to accomplish, then also understanding that regardless of how much money the company is driving from a revenue standpoint, sometimes the budgets for creators are just small or just different because of leadership or because of, what's happening on the inside. There's a lot of factors that play into influencer marketing. And I love it. I love having the opportunity to be a marketer and a creator because I'm able to use both POVs to my advantage. So when I'm a marketer, I can talk about being a creator because I've been a creator and I can connect with marketers and understand, I can talk on behalf of creators. Then when I'm a creator, I understand what marketers, want. It might be they might have limited budget. So let me go up and beyond knowing that if I deliver on this first partnership, it could open up something down the line.
Maybe to make this just a little bit more specific too, as you're kind of digging on this, because I think this is so interesting. Those creators. I've got a friend who has done very well for themselves, but never really found any of that opportunity. I mean, a couple 100,000 followers. Really, really like niche audience. What is something actionable somebody in that seat could do to make them more palatable to a brand, like to put themselves out there? Because I think that like a lot of them are waiting to be found. Would you say that that's a common mistake?
Yeah, I would say you have to be proactive, and it's something I'm seeing too as a a creator myself too. You can be discovered both through the different platforms and through influencer marketing managers, but think about the pool. There's millions of creators that someone could choose from. You might be the best one, but if they're using a platform that you're not in, you're going to get missed. They might, have a tight turnaround, and they might just find the first 20 lifestyle creators and go with them. And so, like anything when it comes to getting a job or anything you want in life, you have to put yourself in a position to get those opportunities. And so, if you're a creator that has 100,000 followers, like you have something to work with, right? You have an audience there. And so, what I think today is one of the best tactics, or one of the things that I think some more creators are starting to use, and also what I use when I'm thinking, of, with my creator hat on, is like reaching out to people on LinkedIn, the influencer marketing managers, the creator partnership managers. I'm connected with them. I'm reaching out to them to say, hey, I'm interested in your brand, or I use this, or I've written about this before. I would love to explore any partnerships with the brand if there's any. If you have time, let's chat, or I'm happy to just send along a media kit. Sometimes there's not an opportunity right there, or you jump on, it's not a immediate opportunity, but at least you're visible. And I've had many times where I reached out to someone, and then months later, they came back out to me. And so I'm thinking that first time was a missed opportunity, but that's just setting up for the future. And I'm planting these little seeds. So get on LinkedIn, connect with the people that are handling partnerships for the brands you want to work with. And also just, reach out to them, but also understand that it's all about relationships. Be top of mind so that it's really easy for someone to bring you into a campaign or think about you when they're thinking about what creators to partner with.
Lindsey, I feel like, out of all of the context that I have, you are on the pulse of so many of the different things happening on social media platforms. The newsletter you put out is just fantastic. In fact, I want to encourage the entire audience, if you have not gone to subscribe to Lindsey's newsletter, you should go do that right now. Will you maybe highlight a couple things, just because you're so up to speed on everything happening in the market? What platforms are really powerful right now? What are some of the biggest changes in the way that content is being created and consumed that might affect a business owner who's looking to sort of grow their audience, or a content creator who's looking to figure out what platforms to invest time on? What will you share kind of some insights of like what's been the highlights of the blog lately?
Yeah, I would say staying on topic of LinkedIn. I think it's really relevant to this audience, right? If you're a business owner, you're probably on LinkedIn in some capacity. The great thing about LinkedIn is in the last 4 or 5 years, it's gone from this place that's just for a job, searching and networking and sharing your press release, to a content platform. And like yourself, myself, people that are working in the business field are not only using it to do those things that LinkedIn was built for, but also putting out content. Because if you think about when you go on LinkedIn versus an Instagram versus TikTok, you're in business mode. You expect to see professional business content, even if it's funny or it's something related to the workforce. And so you already have people in that mode. And so if you're a business owner, the best way to improve your business is to create content that's valuable, depending on your specific niche. The great thing about on LinkedIn is that people are looking for that. And also LinkedIn's doing a great job of producing or releasing more features and tools like short form video. Essentially it has this version of TikTok and Instagram Reels and Snapchat Spotlight on LinkedIn. And if you look at it the last couple weeks, months, like a lot of people are putting out video content because they're starting to realize the power of it. And just like we're doing this podcast, that's video, right? Like there's the audio aspect, but with video, you're more immersive, and it's a way for you to humanize your brand, but also share your thoughts and your value as a person, as a business owner, as a company, and get in front of potential customers or people that you can partner with.
And to elaborate on that too, one of the pieces that I've heard about LinkedIn, and maybe you can verify this, I don't know if this is actually true. I don't have a statistic to back this up, but I heard that the sort of thought process is that if you're creating content on LinkedIn on a regular basis, once a week, and you're doing it on a consistent basis, you are already in the top 1% of all creators on LinkedIn, because no one creates content. Everybody's kind of in that like lurker mode. They're looking at everybody else's content. Maybe they're liking or commenting, but very few people are creating content, and even less are creating video content.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for a way to distinguish yourself in any field right now, creating video content on LinkedIn is huge. Creating any content on LinkedIn is huge. And since they're pushing this vertical video content, they're prioritizing that. So like there's a huge opportunity in the market right there. Would you agree with that?
100%. If I've looked at anything over the last couple of years, and by paying attention to the new updates and tools, most times when a company is investing in certain tools, that's where they want to go. And if we look at video itself, right, like first they release the video tab that's on the bottom of the mobile app, and then they have the video carousel so that when you're scrolling through content, you see 5 to 6 different videos. And so not only are we seeing the product features there, but we're also seeing it kind of the news updates around video content is receiving more engagement than any other format on LinkedIn. And then also there's been like a 34% increase in video content uploaded year over year. And so whether you're looking at it from a product standpoint or data standpoint, all paths lead to short form video on LinkedIn. And the thing is that you could create net new video, but if you're a business owner that's on podcasts like this, chop it up, get the clippable pieces, and that's even better. That's an easy way to get started. But get started and share your voice with the world. That's what LinkedIn's all about, and it's all about sharing your voice with the world for economic opportunity. For creators that might be working with brands, for business owners that might be bringing in new customers, for 9-to-5 workers that might be generating leads for the company you work for. But economic opportunity is the focus.
What other content platforms would you advocate? Like if you got to rank a couple of the top ones, not only that brands are looking for, but you yourself, just these are powerful platforms that you should be thinking of. Which ones are on the top of your list personally?
I would say newsletters. It's not a social platform. There's a lot of great newsletter platforms out there, but it's a format that I invest in, and I've seen a lot of positive results since investing in a newsletter, almost 3 years, because you have that direct access to your audience, right? Social media platforms have algorithms which could be great for getting in front of new viewers and new audiences, but you're at the liberty, right? Sometimes you have to create content that maybe you're not proud of that just feeds into the algorithm. Who wants to do that? But with a newsletter, you not only get, direct access, you get email subscribers, but when people sign up for a newsletter or even, subscribe to a podcast, they're opting into that content. They're not being fed it. They want to read or listen to that. And so, when it comes to newsletters, some people have really big subscriber lists. Some people have smaller ones, but the quality of that subscriber, I think, is more valuable than most social media followers or subscribers, because those people are opting in week over week or whatever cadence you have. So newsletters. I would also say, TikTok's there. I won't spend too much time. I think everyone knows the value of TikTok, especially when it comes to being able to get in front of a large audience without having a big follower count. I would take things to Threads, which is a platform that I think is really valuable, especially for business owners. I think most business owners are on Instagram. Instagram's like the foundation, right? Like, I think every business is on Instagram. For those who might be listening that might not be aware of Threads, it's basically Meta's competitor to Twitter/X. And so it's built on top of Instagram in terms of some of the features, but it's a text-based platform, but they also have features that support visual content. And for me, that's a platform that I spend most of my time on a daily basis. So it's usually LinkedIn, Threads, Instagram. And I think Threads is still early on where you can still grow your audience because there's less people creating content, just similar to LinkedIn. But also if you have an Instagram presence, you care about Instagram, it's a way to drive followers back to Instagram. By me just producing content on Threads, I've probably gained maybe 1,000 or so followers without directing people to Instagram, just because they come across my Threads. There's a little Instagram logo. They're interested to see who this person is. I do it all the time. They like my Threads content. They want to see the visual content. They follow me. And so they play really well together. And it's still really early for anyone that wants to break through the noise.
So I want to shift gears a little bit into like practical advice, right? Whether they're, it's a business owner or somebody who's, just dipping their toes in influencer marketing. Do you have any general advice that you give of like, how much budget does it take before you can get started with something like this? How do you have to have some expert knowledge to get started? What do people need to know about influencer marketing at the basic level?
You can start without any money. I think it's going to be tougher, but campaigns where I just got product only or some type of experience, and especially earlier in my career, and that's more outside the creator economy space. It's like hiking and lifestyle when I first was like sharing content, and those campaigns are great for me because it's a way for me to attach myself to a brand that had a nice name and a way for me to go and pitch to other brands. So if you don't have a budget, you can still work with creators. I would say reach out to people that might be tagging you in content already. I think for restaurants or salons or like, I guess physical businesses where people might be sharing content around that. Use the restaurants, right? Like everyone takes photos of their food, right? And so
Uh-huh.
if you are, or even a coffee shop, especially thinking about local businesses, if people are sharing your space, your coffee and content, those could be good ones to reach out to and say, hey, like, love your content. I don't have a budget right now, but would you be interested in, sharing some photos on our behalf? And we'll give you, a month of free coffee or something like that. Or, whatever value you can add at that time.
You don't need to start with $10 million or something like that. You can start small as a small brand.
Yep. And I also too, so that would be one thing I would recommend. The second is, I think for anyone, if you want to work with creators or know more about the creator economy and influencer marketing, create content yourself. I think that's the best way. It's hard for people to talk about what creators need and how they operate if they haven't put themselves in the shoes of a creator. And I think just by understanding what it takes to create a video, to write a LinkedIn post and feel some of that pain when no one engages with it, get some of that pushback by negative comments or just understand what works and what doesn't work, you'll be able to put yourself on a level of a creator, understand their needs and wants, understand like what are they willing to do? What do they want to get out of any partnerships? And also it's a way for you to kind of, know your customer in a way. I think a lot of people are customer focused today or customer first. I think a lot of business should be creator first because creators are the way that most brands today or in the future are going to get in front of customers. And so you're creator first, that means you're customer first because creators are the ones that allow you to get in front of your audience and potential prospects or potential customers.
I love that. And I got to give this like really cool TEDx talk at SIU. And one of the things I came across in my research is this like phrase, and it was the democratizing power of vertical video content. And it simply boiled down to this, which if you go back, 15, 20 years, something like that, and you wanted to get in front of an audience of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people, like you had to have professional cameras, you had to have a news crew, you had to be a celebrity of some type. And it is so wild to me that you can just pick up your phone off the table, right? Hit record, post that, and with the right content and a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, you could have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I have a TikTok video with 1 million views on it, and
Wow.
like I'm terrible at that, right? It's dumb luck. Like I didn't do anything really cool in that. I answered a question that a lot of people were frustrated by because I was frustrated by it, and it went crazy.
Yeah.
Where else is that possible, right? I mean, there
Yeah.
is no way you can buy that level of exposure. You can't do it any other way. And as a kid today, or somebody as a young professional, you have the ability to have access to so much audience if you're just willing to put yourself out there and hit record, because that's the scary part, right?
Yeah. And I would also say you said you generated millions, right? That's awesome. But even if you generate thousands of impressions, like that's a lot of people you're reaching. And
Yeah.
I see this comparison a lot online, but like if you were to give a talk in front of 1,000 people, that's a big crowd. And the funny thing is that, especially I know some people that will post something on LinkedIn and it does bad and they'll take it down. There'll be like 1,000, 2,000 impressions. I'm like, you know how many people that is in real life? And so I think also kind of going back to like practical advice is like, it's not always about the performance metrics give you an idea of your reach and how engaging a video is. But there's a lot of people that watch content and don't engage with it. I would say that's becoming more common today. Like think about how many videos you might watch on LinkedIn, especially because you're fed with so much content and you might see it, you might not comment on it, but that brand awareness is there. I know so many people that's, say, hey, I love your LinkedIn content that may have never engaged with a post, right? But I'm still getting my goals or I'm still tracking to my goals. And so sometimes the vanity metrics aren't the best indicator. It's really like what impact you can have. And some of that impact comes through untraditional channels. You know, you produce content, you come across someone at a conference, they give you feedback. It's not a like or comment, but that feedback's more powerful. They give you a deal, they give you an opportunity.
I'm so glad that you said the thing about, like speaking to the audience, because I imagine if you and I were sitting in the same room having this conversation, I got to that point where I was like really disappointed, disillusioned, because I'd post something on TikTok and I'd get like 200 views. But like what's so crazy about that is if you and I sat down for a conversation, invited some friends, and 290 people showed up to that room, we'd be like popping bottles of champagne because what a great turnout. And people get really disappointed and disillusioned by like, oh, I've got to start with millions of viewers. And that's not the case at all, especially on LinkedIn. You are a very successful creator on LinkedIn. And I am sure there are things that you post that don't have amazing metrics, but still have amazing impact.
All the time. I mean, even what I've been posting lately, I'd be like, damn, like, this is good content. It's not getting the same engagement. And I've gotten to a point where I don't let it impact me because my goal isn't likes and comments, it's to provide value. And sometimes the likes and comments aren't the greatest indicator of that. And also, if you put yourself out there, it's a mental battle, right? If you're only posting stuff that gets positive feedback, then you're not helping yourself. You're not being true to yourself. And so I think that's going to be the biggest struggle, especially with business owners, right? I've seen it from CEOs and C-suite people that post something and they might be afraid that it's going to flop. And so they make their employees like it and comment, which is, a good strategy. But it also shows you that the people that have the highest power, are self-conscious about that. And so there's no reason from being a small business owner or a student or just a 9 to 5 person to be afraid. Put yourself out there, learn to kind of battle through the barriers and know that every piece of content you put out is opportunity for you to get in front of your prospect or the person you want to reach, and opportunity to create more opportunities for yourself. And those stack up over time.
Oh yeah, that's huge. So I like this mic drop moment of like, I want people to write this down, what you just said, which is like, my goal is not likes and comments. My goal is to provide value. And I feel like if you go into that for the right reason, you're always going to ultimately get better results. So that's huge. Lindsey, I guess I just want to close on this one big idea, which is like this actionable piece of advice. If you could give somebody some advice who maybe wants to follow in your footsteps, who maybe wants to be a content creator, but I want it to be something actionable, something they can do in the next 7 days. What advice would you give them if they're trying to follow in your footsteps?
First thing I would say is whatever topic you pick, jot down 3 or 4 different kind of sub pillars of that topic. Think about who's the audience for that, and then take those and go to whatever platform that allows you to share your knowledge about those pillars in the best way. So going back to what I said before, LinkedIn text is the best for me. I use that. That's the easiest for me to write and produce on a consistent basis. I can do that in my sleep for the most part, where video, I have to edit it and I have to do a couple of takes. And I would say shoot for, 2 to 3 different posts a week and do that for a month straight and see where you end up at. And I think especially on a platform like LinkedIn, that you're bound to feel more comfortable, but also pick up some followers and people start to look at you if you're putting out good content.
Lindsey, if people want to follow you, and they should, I know that they should be signing up for your newsletter on LinkedIn. That's a big one. I know you said you were on Threads. Where else can people connect with you if they want to follow you or if they want to hire you? Give yourself the plug real quick to close things out.
Awesome. So lindseygamble.com, you can find everything there. Along with the newsletter, I have a blog, so I write consistently about the social media space, influence marketing, creator economy, and all my services are there. And then LinkedIn is a big one. I'm pretty responsive. Find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM, and we can figure it out. But anyone that's listening, sign up for the newsletter. But if there's anything I can help with, if you're a friend of Nick, then you're a friend of mine.
All right. Lindsey, thank you so much for your time today, man. You've been awesome. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.